Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham. It's Friday night on TalkTV and this is the one place where you don't have to worry about judging anyone because we'll do it all for you. I've got a fantastic array of talent here with me to judge the most idiotic people who have been doing bad things all this week, and we're going to find out exactly who is going to win the great accolade of Plank of the Week. It was Sadiq Khan last week. He can't win it again, surely, 2 weeks in a row. But I'm delighted to introduce to you, first up, it is the former First Minister of Scotland, Mr Alex Salmond. It is Georgie from the Times Money Mentor. It is Russell Quirk, the man for all seasons, a Renaissance man and all the rest of it. And Amanda Devlin from the Sun Showbiz Department, providing all the glamour as well. We've got Plank of the Week right here, and there it is. Who, I wonder, is going to win it? Let us kick it off, first of all, with Amanda. Who's your first nomination, Amanda?
Paula Venables.
Why not, indeed?
No more.
Yes.
She's finally handed it back in, but in my opinion, she should never have accepted it in the first place. She is, of course, the chief executive of the Post Office when all of this scandal.
Yes.
She was presiding over it at the time when all of... I mean, it's been the most extraordinary story, hasn't it, this week,
really
talking about it.
Week, hasn't it?
It was kind of... The reason it's come to so much light is because of this ITV drama, but obviously it's been going on for the past 20 years. Yeah. We've had journalists fighting to get the story heard, politicians behind the scenes, but I think the point about the ITV drama is that it just sort of really showed you the human aspect of it, the human story. Yeah. And it was such an emotional drama, you know, really incredible performances over a 4-part series. I loved it. But it was just so sad at the end of it because you thought these people had been left with
still
25. I think it was about £25,000.
Yeah.
Some of them got. This is about 700 people who were affected, had their whole lives completely ruined. They could have been sent to prison, or they were, convicted of different things, and their whole life spiraled out of control. They had to pay all this money back.
Places like America because they got a criminal record, all of that sort of thing.
Whereas our friend here, Paula Venables, during that time she earned about £4.5 million as chief executive. But what is so awful about this is that she took £2.2 million in bonuses, performance-related bonuses, while this was ongoing, while Horizon, the scandal...
And she was also in charge
one of the worst of the country.
Of all of the people who were appointed to fight the lawsuits and to bring people in who were going to prove that these people were in fact crooks when they weren't.
So she earned about £300,000 bonus per conviction. Yeah. Effectively, didn't she?
Very nice.
And I wonder if when she has to kind of package up her honour, does she actually have to put it in a box and hopefully take it to the post office, ironically, and stick it in the post and send it back to Buckingham
I think
Palace?
They should have the. I think they should have the presentation process in reverse. So she should have to go all the way to Windsor
and
have it taken off
and do it like, you know, as if you're filming something backwards.
Yes.
And sort of somehow give it back to Princess Anne.
Yeah.
And make a big thing of it.
That'd be a great idea.
But I mean, I think
it must be humiliating for her. But the fact that she took it in the first place, knowing.
But she only gave it back after some time, didn't she?
And huge scrutiny.
A lot of pressure. Rishi Sunak on
gave
Sunday.
It back when Rishi Sunak suddenly decided that he would hint that she should give it back,
and
then almost instantaneously. Yeah. And whole things. I mean, you know, Miss Venables clearly is greatly to blame, and also the Honours Committee. I mean,
there's lots of other
giving
people
her an honour, and you've never even got near one, Mike.
I wouldn't accept it, as you know, Alex, being an independent.
How many
public.
times have you turned it down?
I haven't turned it down yet, but I would. I genuinely would turn it down. I've got no interest in being honoured.
He doesn't want one until he's actually offered one.
No, that's not true. You may hang around with lots of people in the property business who are complete hypocrites and liars and cheats. I, on the other hand, am completely without stain when it comes to these matters. Of course. So I can assure you I would never accept it.
This is the point about the honours system, though, and this is another sort of case highlighting that if we're letting these kind of people in and get these... I mean, this is just under knighthood and damehood, a CBE.
She also got a great couple of jobs afterwards, didn't she, Alex? Did she not end up running an NHS trust? Did she not also end up getting some other...
Her star was still rising, you know, as people were going to jail unjustly and all the rest of it. I mean, look, there's lots of culpability in this scandal.
There is.
Lots of culpability. But the people I think you can identify as having key responsibility are those like this lady in question who are organising the prosecutions or who are giving evidence against people, false evidence. You know, people wonder, what's the most serious thing you can do in a criminal court? I've got absolutely no doubt it's perjury.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who could be accused of perjury.
And hopefully they'll be brought to book and brought to account. Another thing, you know, I think we're about to talk about this. The responsible ministers the ones who were in a position to see what was happening and should have had the wit to realise there could not have been a mass outbreak of dishonesty among postmasters and postmistresses. It was ridiculous.
And also the fact that it's a travesty that it took an ITV production 20 years after the event, 20 years after the fact, to actually now bring this to the fore again, where now everybody is talking about it in the news. Why was this not dealt with in the same serious manner 10 years ago, 15 years ago, as we're dealing with it today?
And you can't politicise it because there are lots of politicians across all parties that are involved in this. But it's kind of there's some people that are trying to make that an issue now of the blame game, aren't they?
I mean, Georgie, you've been across this story probably as much as many of us have. I mean, I remember talking about this story 5 or 6 years ago. But I don't remember what then happened, because I think the problem for a lot of people trying to cover the story was that you get continual denials from authorities. You get continual kind of, dismissal from the powers that be. And after a while, there's nowhere to take the story on.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, the press did their bits. We've had books written about this. It did take an ITV series to get this even close to where we are at the moment. But there have been lives lost, suicides, people bankrupt. This is ridiculous.
It's awful.
Why did no one say, hang on a minute, 700 people fiddling the system, or however many it was?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Do we happen to just get really bad eggs?
Well,
no,
I've watched some of
we knew it. So why are they still giving out CBEs and the like, and giving people who shouldn't really deserve it all these payouts and stuff?
Well, the latest
people
story
are making themselves...
was the one this week from the guy from Fujitsu, who's sort of seeking to get himself some kind of deal for anonymity or immunity. He was the guy that was giving evidence against the people who were being charged, saying that they were liars because his system was perfect.
Yeah, and he must have known different.
He must have known.
How many deals have been handed to Fujitsu since all of this
I
came out of the light?
£4 billion.
Exactly.
That was last
goes up every couple of days, Alex.
Well, I was slightly alarmed to find out that apparently Fujitsu are in charge of our flood alert system, which tells you an awful lot about why we're underwater, to be honest. It's not working. Also, do you know this woman, Paula Venables, was about to be nominated by old Archbishop Wokeby to be a bishop.
Oh,
so
wow.
she might have even been sitting in the House of
That
Lords.
was a strange twist about it all, that she is this woman of God and she had to end up. Do you hand your notice in at the church? I don't know how that works, but
I'm not sure.
She was then out. But I mean, that's the point. I wanted to.
She's vacated the pulpit.
I wanted to nominate her for Plank of the Week because she is someone who I think, saying that you're going to give back the CB that you shouldn't have even accepted in the first place, and think that that's it, that's good enough. When, like you said, there are people who have lost their lives, who took their own lives because of the stress they were under, because they saw no hope at the end of it. And there should be so much more done. This shouldn't end here.
But he's a bit like your mate Fred the Shred, isn't he? He had to give back his honour, didn't he, in some way, shape or form?
Yes, he did.
It's a pretty awful thing to be remembered.
Far be it from me to defend Fred the Shred, but he didn't say. I mean, he lost lots of people lots of money for carelessness and arrogance, but he didn't send anybody to jail.
No,
he didn't. Wasn't in charge of people who were falsifying evidence. He didn't. I mean, yes, of course, there was huge financial consequences, but there's a difference here, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
There's a massive cover-up. There's falsification of evidence. There's perjury on an industrial scale, and I hope when all the the Prime Minister's had his say, and I'm the Prime Minister who's solving it, etc., etc. I think we'll find that there's still a long way to run in this.
Oh, there is.
Because anybody who believes the 75,000, which seems a pretty paltry baseline to me for a lot of these people, is going to be paid timorously, doesn't know anything about the civil service. So I think there's a long way to run. But at the end of the day, what really sticks in the craw is that some people went to court and gave false evidence to imprison other people, and the people who did that and the people who organised that are the ones of key culpability. Yes, of course, government ministers, absolutely, if they were in charge of the events, but the people who did that in full knowledge of what they were doing
should be held accountable.
They're the ones who are going to hell.
Well, we're going to move on in a minute to somebody else who's going to
going.
be held accountable. But first of all, I've got something for you. Paula Venables here, right at the beginning of all of this trouble kicking off. Here's some advice that she was offering.
If you want to benefit from the way the government is moving with the new universal credit in a couple of years, for example, it is much easier if you can manage all of your finances, for instance, digitally. It is a great ambition because if every organisation is online by 2020, the UK economy will benefit substantially as well.
Well, I feel better. What about you?
I know this is wisdom after the event, but that inclination of the face.
I know.
Somebody who knows absolutely everything and is
But
graciously dispersing some knowledge for everyone else.
No, but isn't it
Bloody hell.
interesting though? Because if you watch that, not knowing what's just happened, you would think there's a very arrogant-looking woman who's sort of talking down
Yes,
to
that's
everybody,
what I
saying,
think.
"Look, if you want to manage your benefits, you best get on digital because that's the way it's all going."
Yes, hurry up.
Now, of course, she's got to hang her head in shame. She can't even go to the local church. You're going to add a name to this, though.
I am, yes. So following on from all this, and Alex has touched on the ministerial involvement thing a couple of times. My plank is Ed Davey.
Yes.
Now, Ed Davey, not just because he's leader of the Liberal Democrats, actually, which is probably reason enough to nominate him, but because at the time of this debacle between 2010 and 2012, Ed Davey was the Minister for the Post Office.
The Post Office, yes.
He was in charge.
What would he be in charge of?
He was in charge of the Post Office.
The Post Office,
yes,
right,
yes.
okay.
And all things Post Office related.
Yes.
People,
Yes.
operations,
Right.
process.
Contracts.
And one would imagine Post Office integrity.
Contracts,
I would imagine, yes. So, but this is really right why he's my plank. In his career over the last few years, Ed Davey has called for the resignation of no less than 34 individuals. 34 people that he has poked a finger at and said, well, you're a wrong 'un, you're bad, you're terrible, you should resign, you've got no integrity and so on. Well, I now, as many people have done over the last few days, call upon Ed Davey to do the right thing by way of practising what he preaches.
Yes.
If he oversaw this as a responsible minister, an elected member that was supposed to act on our behalf in terms of integrity and transparency and making sure that, the right thing is done, surely he should fall on his sword and he, Ed Davey, you should resign.
yes.
But he was lied to, though.
Well, that's what he says.
Come on.
I mean,
It isn't his job. Hang
he
on.
was
Georgie,
lied
sorry.
to. The poor
The civil
guy. How
service.
can you trust the people around
hang
you?
on. The civil service walk in and say, let me paraphrase, there's 700 postmasters here that we think are all at it and they've had a few £100 million away. And he just went,
surely
have they?
something
Oh, that's
was
outrageous. And just
twin.
signed on the bit of paper.
Graceful, yeah.
Come on.
The reason that everybody was out to get them, or everybody apart from the Liberal Democrats, is they would save the world for sanctimony. I mean, they're the most sanctimonious bunch of people ever. And Ed Davey, of course, at the drop of a hat will call for everybody's resignation, as you rightly say.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality about Liberal Democrat ministers, with a couple of exceptions, I'd make Chris Huhne, who of course went to jail for other reasons, was actually a very good minister, in my opinion. And maybe just a couple of exceptions. They were all totally useless. They were so busy,
They wanted the power, though, didn't
they? They enjoyed the trappings of the ministerial car.
They actually forgot to be ministers.
Yes.
And I would say, with a couple of exceptions, they were totally useless, completely entitled, and Ed Davey was certainly right up there with the
Can I just add
top of
another
the ranks
layer?
of
Well, let me just
uselessness.
play you his excuse.
I wish I'd known then what we all know now. The Post Office was lying on an industrial scale to me and other ministers. And when I met Alan Bates and listened to his concerns, I put those concerns to the officials in my department.
He is either incompetent or dishonest.
Yes.
You can only choose one of those two things, or both.
He
perhaps.
also refused to meet Alan Bates on several occasions.
He
Didn't
did.
He says he did meet him finally.
So he's kind of turned a blind eye, it appears, and not done his job in terms of proper scrutiny. The other thing, though, of course, he did take £220,000, apparently, from a firm that was advising the legal firm that was prosecuting the postmasters.
That was after he was Post Office Minister.
Yeah, after, but
still
come on,
did it.
that
One
looks
of the first things
terrible.
about being a man, don't believe a word you're told. I mean, the only Liberal Democrat I've ever met who was, had the capacity not to believe his civil servants was a guy called Norman Baker. But then Norman Baker never believed anybody, which was a great talent.
Well, surely that should be the starting point.
But
if you're a minister.
it should be. If you want to be a minister, then you don't just recite or regurgitate all the garbage you're given and
Unless you're
prance
useless.
about.
Unless you're useless.
Unless you're useless, like Ed Davey.
Indeed.
And he
well,
also he dodged Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday.
yeah, well, he was
didn't
meant
he?
to be in on Prime Minister's questions, and he even had a question that he'd been granted to ask, which a lot of people
And has a
of course,
knighthood.
and he has
Just
a
was
knighthood.
very
Should he hand that back?
And
Is
he
that enough?
literally
All those
a sort of
postmasters will be
like
pleased
a
with that?
child, like a recalcitrant teenager.
Exactly.
He just didn't turn up.
A coward.
Ridiculous.
And you had Lee Anderson calling for him
Yeah.
to resign. He
Exactly
said,
right.
And
clear
by the
off.
way, just quickly, sorry, the total cost of this for the taxpayers so far in legal fees compensation, £1 billion.
Yes, I know.
Look, not all.
We're going to have to move on, otherwise I'm going to get told this is going to be a special on the post office. There's plenty of
could
other
talk
planks
for
out
an
there, by the
hour.
way.
We could talk
But
for
we'll
an
come
hour.
back to it, I'm sure. Let's go, Georgie, with your first one.
Yeah,
Not the post office.
It's not the post
Thank
office.
God.
But I just think what that £1 billion could be spent on. potholes.
Yeah.
Mine is the Department for Transport. Apparently, according to the latest figures, up 40% last year. Costs are up 30% to an average of £3,000 damage-related pothole.
Yes.
Anyone who drives, especially those outside of big cities that need to get around with their cars, will know. Cyclists particularly will know how dangerous it is. It's expensive, it's dangerous. It drives me mad. Country's going to the dogs. It's one of those signs that you just look at it and you think, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed
Why
at
are the roads in
state
this
of our
country
roads,
so bad?
of our country. And then Rishi Sunak saying it's one of his main priorities. I don't think it's one of his 5 or his next 5. Maybe it'll be the next 5, but we'll see.
It wasn't in the 5.
No.
But if it's such a priority, why is it local authorities are getting a third less of what they actually need to cover this issue? It's also the fact that they are covering less potholes by 300,000, I think, last year. We are way off where we need to be.
Yes. Can I just make a suggestion? I don't think it should be for central government to pay for the potholes to be fixed, because it should be the local council who are already claiming they haven't got any money. They take all the money from the people that live in the place where they operate. They take loads of money for parking, which they didn't used to take, and they now say they haven't got any money to spend.
But they are also in control of things like social care, all those sorts of things. So everything else, bin collections, everything else is being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed as local council spending has been squeezed.
Yeah, but they're charging us more money, though.
Road tax and VAT on it. Every time we get our cars repaired from pothole damage, 20% goes to the government in VAT.
Absolutely right in this. And things are going to get worse because the weather's getting worse and the capital budgets are getting less. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
And there's more cars on the road because nobody goes on the train anymore.
I fancy a kind of pothole FBI. I think there should be well, certainly in Scotland at least, a Scottish pothole FBI, a national squad of people using the best of technology, all these new equipment and new materials to fill potholes, and local authorities
led by Rod Stewart
and communities
I've seen him fill a
should be
pothole.
able to bid for their case of having the worst road to get sorted. I think you need an initiative like that. That's what Rishi Sunak will introduce.
See, I think the pothole problem is
FBI.
a sort of is a kind of a microcosm of Britain.
It's indicative.
Because nothing has been done for so long to look after anything that we've now got things falling apart around your ears. It's like having a house where the windows are literally falling out.
When I was a sports journalist, and back in the day when Newcastle were poor, a wizened journalist said to me, Georgie, look at the lights around, and there were a few off. And he said, that is the sign of a bad club with bad finance. Exactly.
It is.
And it reminds me, that was a Microsoft. This is what the pothole situation, and it drives us, no pun intended, but mad for the fact we're spending all of this money and this is the state of our roads. It's dangerous,
and it is.
expensive, we're having shoddy filling jobs, we need to get this done, otherwise it's going to get only going to get worse.
Your point about central government, I mean, I agree with Mike that all the money that's taken from county council should obviously, not all of it, but a proportion of it should go on roads. But let's not forget fuel duty. Fuel duty in England alone is £27 billion the Exchequer takes. Some of that surely
what are they doing with it?
Has got to be spent on the roads.
Also, we're spending billions on new roads. Why don't we just fix the ones that we have?
Yeah, I agree. Or ban a lot of people from driving. That's what I would do. Alex, your first destiny.
This is an amazing story. It goes right back in history, but it actually comes to, my personal revenge against Alistair Jack, the Secretary of State for Scotland.
Yes, a lot of people won't know who he is.
Yeah, well, I know that. But Alistair Jack accused me of thieving. Me. On a Stallic.
Right.
And it comes down to
Amazing.
The Stone of Destiny, the Stone of Scone, the iconic legendary stone that symbolises Scottish sovereignty, which was actually stolen, not by me, but by Edward Plantagenet in 1296 and carted off to England, where he put his big backside on it, him and 700 years of successors, to symbolise the overlordship of Scotland. Now, heroically, on Christmas Day 1950, 4 Glasgow University students eased their way into Westminster Abbey, grabbed the stone, which unfortunately broke into 2 pieces, put it into 2 cars and spirited it back to Scotland.
As well.
Is that it?
Yes, this is a fragment of destiny.
She stole it.
This is the bit.
She did steal it.
This is the bit you've been accused of stealing.
He has got it in front of him.
Yeah.
The stone of destiny weighs 25 stone.
All right.
This weighs 2 ounces. As you see, it's broken into 2 bits, which shows it's genuine because the stone was broken into 2 bits. Anyway, what happened then was
There's not another box like that with about 100 of those in.
After
Pebbles off a beach in Sussex.
You buy them in Edinburgh Castle.
Can I finish this important story?
Yes.
As Keeper of the Great Seal of Scotland, one of the custodians of the stone at the time was First Minister, I took the precaution of taking it to a cabinet meeting and asking the person in charge of Historic Scotland, the then Sir John Elvidge, Permanent Secretary of Scottish Government, when he wanted it back. And John said, no, we don't want it back. So I gave it for safekeeping to the Scottish National Party. Given all of that and my honourable conduct, the disgraceful thievery of Edward Plantagenet back in 1296 and the appalling audacity of the establishment to accuse me of thieving, I want to nominate Alistair Jack.
Absolutely
because he dresses up in silly costumes, and if he'd been alive in 1296, he'd have been part of the retinue of Edward.
No doubt. Very well told. Now, my only question, a bit like Russell Quirk's question, was did they find out in Nicola Sturgeon's garden?
The police.
I'm surprised it's not been impounded for evidence.
The police managed to raid the SNP headquarters last year, and the only damn thing they didn't take was the fragment of destiny.
Right. Well, a fabulous tale, but we've got to go. We'll come back to you in a second. Alex Salmond, First Minister of Scotland, he can tell a story or two. Coming up, though, we've got some more for you. I'm going to be talking about the Shadow Chancellor coming up in the next bit. And Carol Vorderman's getting another mention as well. This is Talk TV, Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. This is Talk TV. This is your Friday night special, and this is where we decide who has been the biggest plank. It's only the second week of the year, and there's been an awful lot of it. We've had the post office already. We've had the fabulous stone of scone suggestion from Alex Salmond and Alistair Jack, and also, of course, potholes. Who needs them? I'm going to go now, though, with the Shadow Chancellor, who is Rachel Reeves, a woman who many people think who's going to be almost as boring a Chancellor if she ever gets the job as Jeremy Hunt. She is the sort of female version of Jeremy Hunt. I find her intensely irritating because she comes across as somebody who thinks she's clever because apparently she worked for the Bank of England. And you kind of go, yeah, and?
Really? Yeah.
What does that make you? Somebody who doesn't know what the hell is going on in the currency markets and indeed what on earth is going on in the banking sector.
It makes you somebody who believes in sky-high interest rates.
Yes, but what she did this week was that she made a name for herself by saying that she realises how difficult it is for people to make ends meet with inflation being where it is and the cost of living. And she says she's really struggling to find enough money left at the end of the week for the family groceries, even though she's on £86,000 a year, basic pay. That doesn't include all the expenses that she also gets. Also doesn't include the salary that her husband brings in as a senior civil servant in Downing Street, where he's on about £180,000 a year. So if Rachel Reeves can't make ends meet on what looks like probably close to 300,000 a year, I don't think she should be anywhere near the Treasury, to be honest. I just don't want her anywhere near it. I mean, people say it can't be any worse under Labour. It can, trust me.
Yeah, so this is the person who's going to budget for the country.
When you said she was boring, I thought to myself, well, a lot of chancellors, the most successful chancellors in history have been boring. Stafford Cripps was an incredibly boring man. He used to say a smile like moonlight on a graveyard.
Yes.
But he was a highly successful chancellor.
Yeah, all right, OK, well, I'll take it back then. I don't mind
he
boring.
He didn't have
if you're efficient.
If you're efficient. Budget 300
But she's also boring and incapable of living off £86,000 a year.
She can't balance her own household budget.
She can't, no.
That's scary, on 20 grand a month.
Yeah. I also had a quick look to see whether she'd been in receipt of any particular gifts over time. And it might not surprise you to know that she's in receipt of lots of gifts, including some money that she's been paid to write a book, which I can't imagine would be any less boring than her personality.
It's just the book that she plagiarised from Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, there's also that. Yeah. She got 2 tickets for the first night of the proms. For an approximate price of around about £110. She also got 2 tickets for the last night of the proms as well.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, that's quite nice. So,
bookended
nice
tickets.
Bookended tickets. She also, you'd be pleased to know, got some tickets for Wimbledon this year, which is quite nice if you're a champagne socialist. Those tickets were valued at £1,815. So I'm quite surprised that, given all the freebies she gets, that she even has to worry.
Was she not given a calculator?
About making ends meet.
That's where she's going wrong. To sell them on the second market.
Well, I'm not sure if she could have done that because
give herself an extra bob or two.
She was given them by the Lawn Tennis Association, who donated them
I got
to her.
For Wimbledon, and they got very upset when I took a saltire along to see Andy Murray with me.
Well, she could have done that, yeah. So I mean, she's got an awful lot of free theatre tickets. They're all registered in her place of registration. I just do really worry about a Labour politician anyway with money, because they're always useless with money. We might remember old Liam Byrne leaving the note for the Tories back in 2011 when he said we've already spent everything.
Well, and
There's nothing left.
we shouldn't forget, should we, what the late, great Margaret Thatcher said? Sorry, Alex.
She said that once.
The problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. And that's what's about to happen when Labour take control.
Rachel Reeves will never run out of other people's money because she keeps getting given it.
Yeah.
And also, her husband, who I would count as another person, is obviously going to bankroll her for the rest of the time, even if she doesn't get an increase in pay because she becomes a proper member of the cabinet.
And infinitum because of their pensions.
Well, there's also that. So, Rachel, maybe go and do some kind of correspondence course in economics if you want to run the country's economy.
And can politicians, especially Labour politicians, stop pretending to know how other normal people are feeling?
How they're living.
How they're living, how they're feeling, how they're in this cost of living crisis, when they don't have any idea. And sort of scoring points against Rachel Reeves versus, say, Rishi Sunak.
Yes.
They're both as bad as each other because they're both in that Westminster bubble. Yeah. And it's then difficult for us to be...
No, it's not all Labour. I mean, look, Jeremy Corbyn, I mean, whatever else you might say about him, it's not somebody who was given to ostentatious lifestyles.
Well, he does live in Islington.
He was brought up in a stately home and went to a public school.
Well,
apart from that,
most politicians here and say they're genuinely decent folk.
I mean, the thing about we can't go on too long here, but the thing about Corbyn is that he chooses to make out that he's a sort of working man, ragged trousers philanthropist and all that cobblers. But actually,
like ragged.
But I think it's just be honest about it and just own up and just say, you're enjoying your life. And
these people have never had to worry about money.
They've never had to worry about it.
I'm being told off now, so come on, give us Carol Vorderman.
Okay, so
prepare yourself for the onslaught.
I cannot believe.
I am sorry, Alex, but I am nominating Carol Vorderman, and I know that I'm risking her wrath by doing so.
You certainly are.
Because
you'll be called a witch, won't you?
Oh, I know.
She calls people who don't like her who are female.
And exactly, and that's what's really scary. But I am defending her slightly on the start of this. So basically, I'm nominating her this week in particular because she had this run-in with Lord Sean Bailey.
Yes.
He said a very silly thing about her, saying that she's all boobs and bum, and then she's on Instagram.
She can't be a political commentator.
And she can't at the same time. And
I think he was wrong about that.
Yes, I think so as well. And I think it would be nice if you can be attractive and actually know what you're talking about, have a brain as well.
I spend a lot of time on my appearance, and I don't expect to be.
Yeah,
exactly. And I don't expect people to take the mickey out of me. I expect people to just accept that I can also be
beautiful,
an intelligent political commentator as well as looking good. What's wrong with that?
Yes,
exactly.
So it's amazing.
She beautifully shows him up because you can tell, wow, she's so...
There she is. That's her Instagram picture.
She's so intelligent and she's beautiful, so she can be both, and that's great.
Yeah.
But because of the way that she is controlling her social media at the moment, I personally think, in a way to get likes...
She's quite nasty as well about people.
She's being nasty, and she's making it so aggressive. And it's upsetting me as a woman because I think we always get a bit of a bad reputation for being a bit of a bitch, a bit bitchy.
Yes.
And it would be great if she could fight for all of these causes, which I think is coming from some sort of genuine place down the line. But it would be great if she could do it without being so aggressive and nasty.
But she's sort of come to hating the Tories later in life. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with somebody who wants to hate the Tories, but she has made it very personal, particularly about Johnny Mercer and his wife, about other people that she has a go at. Everybody's corrupt. She's already had to take down some tweets that she made about one particular minister.
She had to leave her show.
And Sean Bailey's calling her a bully. And I think if there was if the situation was reversed and Sean Bailey was a white lord having a go at a black woman, do you think that he would be given an easy time the way that she's been given an easy time? I don't think so.
Yeah. It's also interesting at the moment because, Joey Barton's going on his whole thing at the moment, the whole... he's kind of gone so right-wing, hasn't he? And he's been really vocal about everything.
Though. He's just having a go at women.
He's just...
He's not,
Oh, right.
He's not really right-wing. But in fact, he refuses to go on some TV stations on the basis that he doesn't think that they're fair to people and they're too right-wing. So I don't know what Joey Barton's
Sometimes I think that Carol is getting away with saying things that if she was a man, she wouldn't be able to.
She gets away with a lot of it because she's left-wing. I think
left-wing and a female, and I think she's getting away with it. Whereas Joey Barton says certain things, and that everyone's kind of against him.
Yeah,
I think Joey Barton's got just a little bit of history, just
on
the pitch.
Let's have a look at what Julie Hartley-Brewer makes of it all.
She posts these sort of pictures. Look at my body. Well, I think it's perfectly reasonable for men to comment on that if a woman does that. Philip, you're old school. Come on, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. You know, she puts herself out from a sexual perspective because that fits her personality and her brand.
And of course,
She
Julia...
certainly put him on the spot, didn't she?
I mean, that's not a question you want to be asked by Julia.
But you know, she's intelligent, beautiful, and vindictive. But that's 2 out of 3.
Oh, in other words,
Bad, you know?
but also she's a woman, so you would expect all 3 of those, wouldn't you?
Well, you'd have to do better than that.
You're
to be
going
a
to be
plant.
cancelled.
There's nothing wrong with her being
There's
all
nothing
boobs.
wrong with women being
Yeah,
vindictive.
but there's nothing wrong with her being all boobs and bums and being a political commentator. The fact is, it's got nothing to do with her appearance. She's just wrong.
I think she's
hysteria.
skewed the truth. I think that's part of the problem. And that because of the vitriol that she sort of taints everything with, everything's kind of tinged with this horrible sort of poison pen feel, that you just think,
Well,
you know, why is
Absolutely.
this? Why
And
are you
Clearly
only
been
doing
invited
this now?
into government forthwith by Keir Starmer.
But why is she only doing it now? I mean, she used to work with the Tory party, right? She used to work with David Cameron.
Now
She
you're
was
getting-
always interested in educational subjects, which is fine. I've had her on my show many times. I knew her when she used to present the Pride of Britain Awards, and she was a very interesting, very normal individual.
I think
something's happened to her. I don't know what it is.
I think she's doing it now because she realises she's become less relevant, and therefore she's got to do something to increase her exposure, her popularity. She's picked a side. She could have picked right, could have picked left. She realises that the left perhaps is going to win the election, and as a consequence, she's doubling down on controversy. Do you know what she's become? The socialist Katie Hopkins.
I was about to say, it's a Katie
Interesting.
Hopkins effect.
Yeah.
You sort of almost become pastiche of yourself.
Yes.
You're like,
She's a caricature.
yeah, exactly. You keep texting.
Can't take it seriously.
Keep messaging. You
That's
get
kind of
likes, and so you
constant as
keep
well.
Can I
on
make a
going.
suggestion? How about Baroness Carol Vorderman for Minister for the Post Office in the next Labour government?
Yeah. All your
could
packages
have
need
sorted that
are
out.
made here. Anyway, let's go with Russell. I mean, you're going to revisit last week's winner.
I'm so sorry. It's
No.
Sadiq Khan again.
I find it interesting that we
Give us a
find
break.
new and unusual reasons to nominate
Can I
him.
just make
week.
it clear to this huge audience
Yes.
here that no one says to us at the beginning of this or yesterday or whatever, can you make sure you nominate Sadiq
Yeah,
Khan?
he just does.
We are
Gets
given
it.
free reign,
You are.
100% free reign to nominate who we want to
I'm
nominate.
worried that he likes it too
Well,
much.
maybe
He loves
does.
the publicity.
So, Sadiq Khan, for a whole bunch of different reasons this week. Because apparently now London is the slowest city on the planet. That was announced this week, but that's not really why
And
I'm
he's one of
nominating
the
him.
slowest mayors we've ever had.
The slowest
on the
cerebrally,
uptake.
yeah. But really, I mean, the serious side of this, from a London taxpayer perspective, is the reason I want to nominate him is because just as we're getting through this whole union strike thing, you know, with most professions, maybe not doctors, but certainly when it comes to Transport for London, we're kind of getting there. A deal was done fairly recently with the RMT, where they've accepted a 5% pay increase and a bit of money on top. All good. ASLEF then, one of the other rail unions that drive trains and tube trains, then says, well, actually now we're going to go out on strike because we want more money. Instead of treating them the same, so that the same 5% applied, what Sadiq Khan's done this week is to pull £30 million, probably of ULEZ extension money, out of his magic socialist hat and said to ASLEF, well, if you don't go on strike, I'll use this to help you out and subsidise you. Now, the problem with that, of course, what would you do as the RMT union boss? You'd say, well, hang on a sec. If there's another load of money in that magic socialist money pot, well, hang on, we want a bit of that as well. So now, rather than solving the problem, he's basically unearthed and unwound the negotiations that he did with RMT.
That this is what happens. If Labour get in, everyone going, oh, it'll be great now because nobody will go on strike. No, incorrect. They'll all go on strike more because they'll know that they'll be able to
And
get
what did Sadiq Khan say before he got elected?
If you believe that, you should be congratulating the mayor for demonstrating what will happen if Labour get in, instead of trying to run him down and make him plank of the week.
It's great, yeah, if the Conservatives went
think it's great.
No, but hang on,
Yeah.
he's still
Yeah.
spending.
Yeah.
No, but he's still spending our money without asking anybody.
He does
Thank you
that
very much
anyway.
indeed.
Yeah.
But he's now
There
spending
There is
more.
also the point. So before he got elected, one of his many pledges, which of course he haven't come true, but like building houses in adequate
unusual
numbers
there,
and so on, he said no more TFL strikes. Do you know
Yeah.
how many strikes there's been since he was elected in 2016? 140
Yes.
strikes.
It's an absolute
It's
disgrace.
so that
It is
really
shocking.
The man is inept
is.
and a
about-
perpetual plank of the week.
The great news about London being slower, though, is they've got recently £200 million to get rid of potholes from the HS2 canning. So that's great for our northern friends who will not get that money. It'll go to London to fix the potholes, and it's still the slowest.
To keep up with all this money that's being bandied about. It's all our money. Yeah, what the hell are they doing with it? This is Plank of the Week. Coming up, we're going to move over to a bit of Scotland, and also we've got some banking business to take care of as well. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. It is Friday night, and of course, what better place to be than right here on TalkTV, judging all of the planks that we've already been discussing, and we've got loads more to do before we get to the end. Georgie Frost, it is your second nominee.
Thank you very much. Yep, it's Reading the Room. It is Sir Howard Davies.
Ah, yes.
Yes, he's the chair of NatWest. Why? For saying it is not that difficult to get on the property ladder.
Is he the new Dame Alison Rose?
Who also, of Dame Alison Rose fame, of saying she is a great leader, talking about not reading the room over the Nigel Farage debacle.
Yes.
And also the third runway at Heathrow, which I will leave to your capable hands to go into his past. Look, a bit like the cost of living crisis at the moment, for some people, it's not really a crisis. If you don't have a mortgage, you own your home outright, etc., etc., it's not a problem.
If you've got loads of money, it's fine.
Saying that it's not that difficult to get on the property ladder at the moment. Yes, first-time buyer figures are up, but actually they're half what they were back in the 1980s when I looked. Yes, they are. The number of young people who own their own home are half what they were in 89, which is, I looked in my lifetime as to when the highest interest rates were. 89, 15% roughly. Where you could buy a house with 4 times your earnings. Now you're looking at 9 times, 12 times in London. Average age is 33 to get on the property ladder. It is not easy without the bank of mum and dad. And if you don't have the bank of mum and dad, you have to find a £61,000 deposit on average, £120,000 roughly in London. That's the average.
You don't have to. That's an average.
You don't have to, but that is an average.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. I mean, I came back from America and bought my first house for something like £70,000. I mean, it was in the back of Beyond in Wiltshire. 80s? No, 97, 96, 97. It was in Wiltshire, right? And I sold it, I think, about 3 years later for 120, and that was when it started to go up. And around about that time, it probably was about twice what the salary was that I was making. And nowadays, I mean, it's not really comparable now because now I'm making a fortune, so it's not worth saying. But you know,
he doesn't need a mortgage now.
No, but the bottom line is that my kids could not spend that kind of money on a house anywhere. 70,000. Absolutely
no way. Look, and just to go in there, look.
Being really well behaved.
Savings account.
You're doing very well.
Well done. Savings accounts back in the 80s, you're looking at an average of about 15%. This is Sir Howard Davies on about 750,000. Yes, I know. I just picked that as a date because it was within my.
I mean,
what he said.
Of course they were. But the earnings multiple. You could buy a house on average for £60,000. You're looking at 280,000 now. It's 480,000 in London.
Yeah. But all they've got to do is stop eating avocado sandwiches.
That is true.
You know that. Right, there is that. Right, I'll tell you what. Let's have a listen to what he actually said. So Howard Davies, NatWest boss. Here he is.
Well, I don't think it's that difficult at the moment, but...
To buy a house in this country?
Are we
living in the same country, or are you reporting from overseas?
You have to save, and that's the way it always used to be.
Alec, go on, come on.
No,
it's not a very smart thing to say.
You're right. Give Davis the plank. I mean, he's had everything else in his corner.
I've been looking forward to this.
This is a guy, ex-CBI. He's been on everything. He never says a wise thing, and certainly never does one.
No.
Unbelievable that... you look, commercial banks don't set interest rates, right? Although they're doing very well because they make large margins when interest rates go up to ridiculous levels like they are at the present moment. But the very least you can do is appreciate the pain and suffering that some of your customers might be under.
Yes.
The interest rate levels over the last 2 years have wrecked businesses, wrecked lives, almost as many as that lady in the post office. I mean, they are not to appreciate, from your elevated heights of hundreds of thousands of salaries, that folk might be struggling to find the 10% to get the first deposit down. Their existing customers being ransacked for their mortgage interests, and businesses are being wrecked because of that policy. The very least you can do is say, look, we appreciate the pain that you're suffering from, even if I, as Sir Howard Davies, are not suffering from it myself.
Yes.
The very least.
And also, it's the way he said it. Well, I don't think it's that difficult at the moment.
We've always had to say.
Oh, really?
He's come out and tried to qualify it, but I don't even think his qualification was that great.
Terrible
Absolutely right.
It's terrible
optics. It's bad. That's the point. I mean, we haven't got time to argue about the ins and outs of it.
Oh, shut up.
Farage debacle. It is read the room.
I have things to say, but I'll say them at another time.
Yeah, we'll get you on another time.
I can't wait.
Because we've already said an awful lot about an awful lot of things. We're going to move on. Alex Salmond, your second nominee.
Well, Anas Sarwar, the Labour leader in Scotland, I mean, this will be brief because it only deserves to be brief. This is a guy, all he has to do to get a good result in the election is to say nothing.
Right.
That's all he has to do because, I mean, Hamza Yousaf is not doing brilliantly in terms of his domestic policy. He doesn't have a clue about how to get to independence, therefore he's in a weak position.
This week he's been threatened to jail parents for interfering with their children's
but so
gender.
all Anas Sarwar has to do, he has this compulsion. So Hamza Yousaf was making a speech for the new year this week, so Anas Sarwar has to make one as well. So he goes to Rutherglen, clue Labour won an election there last November, with a guy called Shanks, who now announces himself...
His first name Armitage.
Possibly. the old firm, who now announces himself as Shadow Minister for Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in the House of Commons 2 minutes,
right.
And he announces under his thing as Shadow Minister for Scotland. But he goes there and he announces the speech and he gets surrounded by anti-war, pro-Gaza demonstrators.
Right.
Now, the point is this. I know we disagree substantially on this issue, but the point is this. The Labour Party in Scotland are deeply supportive of the plight of the people of Gaza, don't like the position that Keir Starmer is taking, the equivocation of, I want to see a ceasefire. So a Labour leader puts himself in a position, he gets surrounded by anti-war demonstrators instead of making the speech he wanted to make. When all you have to do is say nothing.
We're nearly at the end, so we're going to go to the next bit, where I'm going to nominate the old favourites, Just Stop Oil. They're back in the news. You'll be amazed, actually, what they're back in the news for. But this is Plank of the Week. More coming up after this. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're almost in the final furlong of the show because I've only got one more nomination to make. And these guys actually almost made it onto the list for the top 10 planks of the year, but didn't quite make it into the top 3, I don't think. But Just Stop Oil didn't do much over Christmas because, they have to go back to their family homes usually, where they have huge, or go skiing.
Barbados.
Cotswolds, get the hampers out from Vorderman Mason, sit around, telling everybody how terrible the planet's going. But now we're sort of back and schools are back. I presume that they're now back out again. So 3 of them went to see the Metropolitan Police this week from Just Stop Oil. And here's their names. Indigo Rumbelow was the first one. Eben Lazarus. And unfortunately, just a very normal name, somebody called Sarah Lunnan, who I think is one of those ones that we keep seeing being dragged off by the police. He's one of those ones that sort of serially gets arrested. But they didn't go to see the Metropolitan Police to tell them what they were doing. They didn't go to see them to tell them that this was their plan for the next sort of few weeks and maybe we could come to some arrangement about how we could slow walk and not upset anybody in London and let people get to do their local businesses. No. They went there to advise them that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and several chief executives of various banks and oil companies are committing genocide and they'd like the Metropolitan Police to arrest them. And are you going...
But worse, I saw that the Metropolitan Police responded to say, yes, we will now investigate, we will take this under advisement. They're actually considering such allegations. I mean, what a load of nonsense.
I mean, I'm hoping that the Metropolitan Police are too busy investigating war crimes in Gaza to actually, which they are, by the way,
they are,
rather than taking to
maybe
task.
stabbings on the street of London.
No.
Not doing that. Shoplifting?
No.
Car theft?
No.
Sorry. Burglary?
No, there's no chance of anything like that.
Okay.
But they have taken it under advisement because this is all due to the International Court that I think it's Article 60 of some ridiculous law that they want to charge Rishi Sunak with on the grounds, not that he's actually, imprisoning people in concentration camps or murdering people on a massive scale, but because he's put out some tenders for some oil and gas licences in the North Sea.
Genocide.
Now, Alex, I know this is a favourite subject of yours because, of course, you think you owned the North Sea up there, don't you, in Scotland?
Well, only Alistair.
He lives near it.
Only Alistair Jack has accused me of trying to get it personally. That's fine. No, I mean, I think. Look, when I depart from you, I don't mind the tactics of. I mean, I think peaceful protest has a legitimate role and all the rest of it, and I'll defend people's right to do that. I don't think Just Stop Oil are right in their approach. I think we should be going headlong, in my view, into carbon capture. We should have been leading that technology for the last 15 years, and you would really have a huge opportunity to make a very substantial difference to the climate targets. And people should focus on,
Yeah, but when we start talking about genocide, just because the electric fans on, that's genocide.
Turn
your boiler off. Air conditioning in the car.
Excuse me, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to
I'd like them to bugger off.
Well, I know you'd like them to do, but OK. They've got the alternative of sitting down opposite the House of Commons or Parliament Square or going in for a cup of tea with the Commissioner of the Met. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Let them go in for a cup of tea.
Well, if they're going in for a cup of tea, let them then share what it is that they plan to do so that we can decide as a city.
I'll give them some free advice. I mean, if anything what happened to these poor Republican demonstrators during the coronation, they went out to share the advice and they promptly got arrested.
Quite right, too.
But it's stupid that they're saying it's genocide.
Not an argument for doing it.
The only mistake the police made was letting them out.
The reality is, though, if we do just stop oil, how many billions of people are going to die instantly if you just stop oil? Right, tomorrow.
Exactly.
Oil, fossil fuels, all that sort of thing.
A reverse ferret, charge them with genocide.
It's just not sensible.
Yeah.
The old people that die in the winter.
Anyway, listen, it's time to pick a winner, and I think we all know the show has gone on for nearly an hour, and I think it started. I think with the winners, it pretty much started with the winners, because the post office story, I'm afraid, has dominated. But I can't give you joint winners, though, so I'm going to have to pick one.
Oh.
Right?
And she's prettier than me.
I wouldn't say that. I think you've scrubbed up very well. Well, this is not an insult to you. It's not an insult to you. I mean, Russell, I mean, look at the work he's had done.
Thousands of pounds.
You know, anyway, listen, I'm going to say, because the woman who gave back the CBE, Paula Venables, has done something at least in the right direction. You've got to give it to Ed Davey. And I'm going to call him Ed Davey. There it is. Ed Davey. I'm going to not call you Sir Ed Davey. Call you Ed Davey. Give up your knighthood. Give up your job. Give up the leadership of the Lib Dems. You are the plank of the week, and it's time for you to leave. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to the panel, Amanda Devlin, Russell Quirk, Georgie Frost, and of course Alex Salmond. Brilliant show. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be back same time next week. Plank of the week. Don't forget, later on tonight, it's The World According to Mike Graham. Don't miss it.